Hi guys, back again. I'm doing another story. This time I've got story by Margie Palatini and illustrated by Henry Cole, Scholastic Books, New York, and everywhere else you can imagine. It's Moosestache. Okay, let's go for it. Moosestache, Scholastic Incorporated, New York, Toronto, London, Auckland, Sydney, Mexico City, New Delhi, Hong Kong, and Buenos Aires. Got to get it in there, and it is copyrighted 1997. What is all this stuff going on? There we go. Okay. Moose had a problem. A horrible, hairy, prickly problem. It grew right below his nostrils and just above his upper lip. A moustache. It really is one, isn't it? Now, not a few spare hairs or shy little stubble. No mere weak wandering whiskers on the upper lip of this moose. No siree. Moose had a big, bushy, bristly, mighty moustache. But a moustache that was burly, surly, mangy mess, and it itched a lot. Sure, he plucked, he tweezed, he even clipped and snipped and teased, but his combs were still cowards, and his brushes rebelled, and his scissors simply surrendered. Scissors didn't, oh dear, look at this poor comb, and his hairbrush is all bent out of shape. It was just too much. Moose was in a frizzy tizzy. The moustache was completely crimping his style. He was a great hoofer, but he could barely hop and hip-hop with a moustache going flip-flop. Look at this, he got his leg all tied up in it. He was a wonderful chef, but he simply could not flambe his souffle with all those whiskers in the way. And he was a daring skier, but how could he downhill race with the mighty moustache blowing in his face? Moose had to do something, and soon. But what? After days and days of much serious thought, Moose got an idea. He crossed some hair this way, he crossed some hair that way, and he tied his moustache around his neck. A moose scarf seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect. But then, his moustache got knotted and mangled and horribly tangled, and those hundreds of hairs still prickled and tickled. Worse, Moose could barely take a breath with all that moustache wrapped around his neck. So Moose untied, unwrapped, unknotted, and gulped in some fresh air. As he's laying flat on his back, he's got a fan and moustache spread out everywhere. He got another idea. He parted some hair this way, he parted some hair that way, and he heaped all the moustache on top of his head. Moustachioed antlers seemed to be the ideal answer to his problem. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, until a squadron of squirrels and one very nosy gopher moved right into the Moose Motel. They huddled and hoarded, furrowed in and burrowed out. Needless to say, it became quite crowded up there on the moose's head, and heavy and messy. They got squirrels all over one is even barbecuing hot dogs. Very, very noisy. The squirrels chittered and chattered, and squeals and squawks woke Moose every morning before the crack of dawn, and the gopher was giving Moose one hairy headache. Moose needed his sleep. He needed his rest. He needed his privacy. Moustachioed antlers? Nuts, said Moose. So he unparted and unpiled and untwisted and untwined and said adios to his hairy horns. But now what? What? The miserable moose took hold of a hunk of hair. He wrestled it, then roped it, tethered it, tied it, tamed. Aha! A moose tail. Now that was so simple. That was so easy. That was not so perfectly perfect. Talk about dizzy-do. Moose didn't know if he was coming or going, backwards, forwards, this way, that. He didn't know which end was which. Moose had to bail on the tail. Look at that, it's all curled around. He needs to remember the tail goes at the back, not the front. Okay, and so he thought and thought and thought some more, but no other ideas was worthy of a winner. Braids were a bother. Moosestache sweater, too sweltering hot. Next, nut. Poor Moose, his problem was truly terrible, unbearable, just downright sad. He felt so alone, he didn't know what else to do. Then, call it fate, call it destiny. It's probably dumb luck. Well, one day, Moose tripped on his moosestache and just had no time to duck. Oomph! He ran into another moose. Beg me, pardon me, they both said as they bumped. Then they blinked, and they stared, and their hearts went thump-a-thump. Yes, it's a love story. She was a moose with a bouffant so bodacious, outrageous, well, it was just plain old big. Hair after hair piled higher than high, a skyscraper due of glorious curls, a tower of swirling twists and twirls. She was simply splendid, stupendous, absolutely superb. Look at that hair on top of her head. Of course, Moose had to ask how she did it, and what she did to get such a do. Ms. Moose winked and then whispered, "Just a little glue." So she helped. He fearlessly plunge a hoof into a fat pot of white gooey goop, and carefully, oh so carefully, they glopped, and they plopped, and they pasted, and they pressed, and they coaxed, and they curled every truly unruly wayward whisker. Around and around they tweaked and twirled these horrible hairs until Moose's once mangy mess was now a wondrous, winding wave of marvelous moosestache. Moose gazed in the mirror and smiled a broad, moosey smile. He was so happy, so glad, just giddy with glee. He looked dashing and handsome. Moose gushed, "Is that me?" Oh, look at that mess. By the way, don't use glue on your hair, okay? Yeah, leave that to the moose. With not a care for one hair, the moose pair boogied and bopped. Dancing to a record player, they skied downhill, even uphill. And their cooking was hot. All the steam. So, of course, it wasn't long after that, Moose and his moosestache and his beautiful bride fox-trotted and tangoed and waltzed down the aisle. Good hair days, bad hair days, they vowed to love and to cherish, and with hearts heaped with love and pots filled with goop, they both sighed, "I do," glue, and promised never to part. Face to face, wow, his moosestache curled around her bouffant hair. Wow, what a wedding. It was so simple, so easy, so perfectly perfect, and it stuck. And there's their pictures. They went to Niagara Falls, and a little baby was born, and a baby in the swimming pool, and then now there's 3 kids, all with awesome hair. The end. I hope you enjoyed that. That was Moosestache, and of course you kids from Newberry Hill, you know that one. But anyway, I read it to you again. You in Springfield, I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, take care. God bless you all. Hey, I love each one of you kids. Take care. Bye.